That's our focus that we're going to have, and we're going to start in just a minute. As soon as this YouTube launches. Hello everyone on YouTube and everyone who's watching this. This is our class that we're doing today, the listing, and I've got a room full of excited people here in Oakland, California, who are going to be doing this live. And so here's what we're going to do. Well, before I get started, what was interesting to you about this? What do you want to learn about going on a listing appointment? Anything come to mind off the top of your head? What materials to bring? We're going to dig deep into that.
How to present it.
How to present the material. Awesome. We're going to do a little role play on that. What are they going to ask me? We're going to start with that. These are all great things. We can answer that. We'll get into it. We're going to get into it. So let's get going. Here's what I want to talk about today. We're going to talk about, I got to get rid of this thing here. Hold on. You know, Zoom is great, and it also has a few little annoyances. One of them is this business. Okay, so what do sellers want? That's the first thing we're going to talk about. What do sellers want? To give it
money low.
You're jumping ahead. So we're going to talk about preparing for the appointment. Then we're going to talk about what to do at the property. Then we're going to talk about what to do after the meeting. And I'm going to share with you some quick links and tools for this process, okay? Okay, so let's get right into it. Yes, please. Because I speak loudly and I might bother the people. All right, so what do sellers want most from their agent? They did a study in 2021, and they said, what do sellers want most? 21% of sellers said, we mostly want the seller to help the agent. Not what do they want most from the sale. What do they want most from us? 21% said, help us to sell the home, price the home competitively. By the way, at the end of this, there's a QR code for you to get the slide deck. So you don't need to take pictures of them because I'll email you the slide deck. Number two thing sellers want from their agents, helping marketing the home to potential buyers, 20%. Help sell the home within a specific time, 16%. Help seller find ways to fix up the home so they can get more money from it, 16%. Other, 27%. Wow. Wow. What does this tell us? What are you taking away from this pie chart? They want a lot, but I would argue they want different things. Every seller you speak to will have a different top priority, and your job is to figure out their top priority, right? And their second priority, and then adjust your plan accordingly. So preparing for the appointment, I got like 5 different sections on this. I would argue that preparing for the appointment is almost as important, if not more important, than the appointment itself. Because if you prepare well, you're going to win that listing. Number 1, review the property profile. Okay, easy peasy. You can get it from the MLS. You can get it from RPR, the National Association of Realtors property reference site. You can get it from your title company. They have property profiles. You want to verify who owns the property, verify the property taxes they paid last year, and verify the mortgage history, if anything. That's what you want from the property profile at a very first step, right? You want to complete a CMA. Before you go any further, you want to look and see what other properties have sold for in the marketplace. You want to compare 2 things. I always do 2 things. Number 1, similar properties in the geography. If the property is 3-bedroom, 2-bath, make sure that you look at other 3-bedroom, 2-baths in that neighborhood, right? But you should also study all the neighborhood sales activity in that geography, everything. At least know and have it ready for you. You don't want to go on that listing appointment and have the guy say to you or the gal say to you, you know, my neighbor's house just went on the market. What can you tell me about that one? And it's a 2-1 and you're selling a 5-3, right? So you should know, right? We'll get more into that in a minute. The other thing about these two things is that sometimes the actual bedroom bathroom count won't match the property profile. You need to know that before you do your CMA. And we'll talk about how you're going to get to know that as part of this process. Okay. The next thing you're going to do, or maybe in conjunction, is you're going to send the seller a pre-listing questionnaire or talk to them at a minimum. What question should you ask? Nathan, what is the question that you just thought of you should ask?
How realistic?
Yeah, no, but the one you were talking about 2 minutes ago when I cut you off, you were talking about priorities, top dollar and other things, right? Yeah, all that stuff. That's one thing you want to know. You certainly want to know bedroom, bathroom count, right? What else might you want to ask them before the meeting?
Why do you want to sell?
Why do you want to sell? So I have created a pre-listing questionnaire that I am happy to share with you. When you fill out the survey at the end of this hour, request it. Put it in the note. I'd like you to send me your pre-listing questionnaire. It's mine. Email, full name, mailing address, best number to reach you. Who are the decision makers? And then it goes in and asks all kinds of other questions that I don't want to use our time for right now. But this is a really, first of all, it makes you look really professional. But second of all, it gives you the intelligence so that your conversation goes smoother than you might think it would. Let's suppose that you are going on this appointment and you're doing the CMA and you're looking at these beautifully remodeled homes that are gorgeous inside, and you haven't had any conversation or any information from the seller yet about how quickly they want to sell. And then you've prepared this whole plan of how you're going to bring in Fremodel or one of these contractor services, and you're going to fix up the home so they can get top dollar. You've already made an assumption they want top dollar. You do your whole CMA based on that. And then you get there and they tell you, we're moving in 2 weeks. So we need to get it on the market tomorrow. What happened to your marketing plan? Down the toilet. So this pre-questionnaire is a huge tool to avoid that problem, right? And if you can't get them to fill out the survey, maybe get them on the phone and say, I'm sorry you didn't have time to fill out the survey. Can I ask you a few key questions from it? It looks very professional. Thank you. All right. So that's one thing. Another thing you're going to do if you have time is order a prelim from your favorite title company. They are free. They will usually turn them around in 2 or 3 days unless there's some sort of problem with title. So go take advantage of that. Order the prelim if you have time and take a look at it. And when you take a look at it, you can verify the ownership. Okay. The property profile ownership may be slightly different than what's on the title report and might be different than who you've been talking with. When you actually go to the meeting, guys, you want to be meeting with all the decision makers and the person who needs to sign the contract. Can you guys give me an example of where the decision maker is not the person who is signing the contract? Nathan. Yes. Yeah, the person who is the trustee, the person signing on behalf of the LC, may have business partners who are going to be involved in what they price and sell it for. Another scenario is an estate sale, oftentimes where you need to consult with all kinds of family members. Another situation is husband and wife, where one of them owns the title and the other one is actually making all the decisions. It happens all the time. So you need to be in front of the right people. It's embarrassing, right? If you go to the listing appointment, the worst thing that would happen is you sign the listing with someone who doesn't have the right to sell the property. But the second problem is you sign the listing and you haven't got all the information and some other person isn't being consulted who needs to be in on the decision. You're wasting your time and your money and your effort. Prepare the listing agreement without filling in all the blanks and any other listing paperwork, like the keep it off the MLS one, and take it with you. Now, we live in a digital age. You know, you meet with them, you can send it to them over DocuSign or something afterwards. Why am I telling you this? Why should you take it with you? The listing paperwork. Why should you take it with you on the appointment? Right. You have it. Maybe you have your laptop. Maybe they have Wi-Fi. Maybe they don't. Maybe your cell connection doesn't work. It doesn't matter. Have a printed physical copy so that if they are ready to sign, here you go, Mr. Cell. By the way, this used to be the way we always did it. But nowadays we're thinking, I'll just send them a DocuSign at the end of the meeting. Yes, except you need to copy it, right? Yeah.
People read it.
Right. People don't read the DocuSigns. That's right. Another thing you want to do is prepare a draft of your marketing plan. I've been saying all along, you need to have a plan, and maybe you've gotten the pre-questionnaire back, you can start. Mr. Seller, based on your answers to my pre-seller questionnaire, here's what I'm thinking about. Let's talk about it, but you have to have it ready to go. Okay. And Keller Williams provides you with a seller guide where you can customize it with your own branding. And that is just another part of professionalism. Some of your sellers don't have experience selling property, or it's been decades. Give them a seller guide with pretty pictures and stuff that they can sort of get a sense of the high level process. You can make your own.
They have already done ones on our
Portal. Absolutely.
that you reach out to marketing and they'll put your little face and logo. Or
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel, guys. You have enough to do. Prepare for the listing appointment. Use the resources that are there for you. All right, now that's only number 2 of our preparation, guys. Let's talk about marketing. We're gonna take a little sidetrack and talk about the marketing plan a little bit. Here are questions I want you to think about, and this is just a few. Number 1, how do you intend to promote the property on the MLS? How do you intend to promote the property on the MLS? People who are new think, oh, all they need to do is fill out the MLS sheet, listing sheet. Okay, but what does that mean? What information are they going to need on the MLS listing sheet? How are you going to describe the property there, Mike?
Zillow, everywhere else.
Yes. Propagates, it goes forward. Anything you put on the MLS is going to go to all the third-party sites. So not just the public remarks, but how are you going to communicate with other agents in the MLS? What detail are you going to put? Do you know all the detail? I mean, they get into some real specific things, like what kind of countertops do they have in the kitchen, right? What kind of flooring do they have in the bathroom? It gets very specific. Order of pictures, all that stuff. You want to start thinking about that, and you should have a plan that you can express to the seller. Next question, what is your open house plan? Even though the seller may not have told you anything about their willingness to let you host open houses, you should be going in with a strategy. Some neighborhoods, you're going to want to do a pre-open house for the neighbors because it's such a good community. Other neighborhoods, maybe you're not going to do the door knocking, right? But you need to be thinking about all of it before you go on the appointment. Yes.
Letting them know you'll be preparing, giving them update and report after every open house. Who came, what percentage of buyers, what percentage of neighbors?
Yeah.
How can we improve things if we need to?
Absolutely.
Data.
Absolutely. And I would go farther. I would develop a communication protocol during the pre-marketing before you go on the market, a weekly update, saying here's the status of things this week, especially if they're doing work. I have a listing coming on next week. And my listing, I've been sending status updates for 2 months to my seller every week. Now I talk to them at other times, but even though I talk to them frequently, the status update email is sort of like a regular thing they've come to expect. That sort of says, here's where we're at with ordering the photography, for example. Yeah, Rob.
So I was told maybe like 48 hours, 72 hours before you do an open house, you should door knock the neighborhood.
You could do it the morning of too, but you're right, even better. Because what you want to do is get people to come to the open house and the neighbors. Why is it good to have neighbors come to the open house, especially in a nice neighborhood? They're going to talk to people and say, oh, this house is coming on the market.
When neighbors come in, I want to ask them details.
Yes.
It's like, tell me some cool place around here. What's something special? Because when you can give fine details that aren't on the MLS, that aren't obvious, that's more like inside information, it's really helpful because then the, potential buyers come in, you say, by the way, this, that, and the other, and go talk to the neighbor.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. Yes. Talk to the neighbors.
Wouldn't be there unless they were thinking about the value of their own home or possibly getting relatives. Like there's some reason that they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had agents in this program who got a listing and then got a buyer or another listing by their open house that they had for the listing they got. Yes.
Yeah, because the neighbor saw them
Yeah.
do a good job or something.
And look, a lot of neighbors want to have family members, other people move into their neighborhood.
Exactly. They want their friends and family to live where they are. Absolutely. Especially if it's a great neighborhood. Okay. So open houses. How will you engage with the neighbors? Mike's already answered the question. Be inquisitive. Be curious. What do you like about this neighborhood? What's a great place for a beer? What's a good place to go to? Where's the closest gym? I mean, some of that stuff you know, but what's a good gym? Or some,
Schools.
yeah. Yeah, you gotta be careful with school stuff because we're not supposed to be expert on the schools, but certainly can say the neighbor said, right? How are you gonna do direct mail? Now, when you're a new agent, maybe cash isn't king yet, and you don't have a lot of cash, but you know, there's sort of an expectation that you're gonna promote your listing with direct mail. That's a postcard saying to the neighborhood or a flyers to the neighborhood or other kind of promotion physically, a physical piece. Yes.
One thing that happened, the Body Open House I did last weekend is the owners were incredible. I mean, it was wonderful.
And you displayed it?
Yes,
was displayed.
and there were copies of it.
Yeah.
Everyone, and it was like really nice information about what they love about the house, the neighborhood, those detailed things. And pretty much everybody came through and said, read this.
Yeah,
And this is really helpful.
that's great. How will you reach agents in the community who sell, have buyers? How will you reach them besides the MLS? So we have an assumption that if we put up the MLS, everyone will just automatically know about it. Surprise, that's not true. Agents are busy. So how will you reach out to other agents?
Database.
So broker opens, make sure the community knows about it when it first comes on the market. Not just host a broker open for the property, but go to other agents, brokers opens in the neighborhood and tell them about your listing. Great idea. Database. What do you mean by database, Rob?
Well, you might have database of agents.
Yes. And you're going to send them an email, right? Or phone them.
So
right?
So you set your database from agents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can tags for it. We have command KW command that does it. So absolutely. So if you know the agents in your database that you've had a personal interaction with, why not send them all a personal email saying, hey, I just want to let you know I've got this exciting new listing, or phone them. What about taking the last 3 months of sales and finding out who the listing agent was from the MLS and contacting the listing agent and buyer's agents as well on the last 3 months of sales in that neighborhood, who may have new business coming up in the neighborhood, may be interested in your listing.
Another nice thing about sort of related is that when you go on a lot of broker brokers, you meet lots of agents. And then you develop relationships with those agents. And it's nice to tell your clients, listen, I have relationships with agents all over this area. I know them well. If they bring buyer clients to me, I've already established relationships with them.
Good thing to tell a seller. Yeah, it looks like a professional. And by the way, guys, it doesn't matter if you haven't been in the business or sold lots of homes. You can still do that, right? That is not a financial barrier or a sales success barrier. All right, another thing you want to think about is how are you going to receive and review offers? You need to be prepared to have this conversation with your sellers, especially in this area where historically we've had an offer deadline date and we've not looked at offers early. That's changing because the market is so soft now. A lot of sellers are better off looking at offers when they get them. But you need to have the conversation.
This last one, she said, she didn't put it, she could look, just have them call.
Yeah, have them call me.
Because she wants that check.
Right. So you need to know, right? You need to know what your plan is going to be and communicate it with this potential seller. So what else do we need to do to prepare? The net sheet, the seller net sheet, super, super important. It is a document that tells the seller how much money they're going to get for a certain price. When, you think it's the sale price. No, it's not the sale price because guess what, guys? They have to pay you. They might be paying a buyer's agent. They have to pay certain fees to the title escrow company for their share. They might have city transfer taxes. They might have prorated property taxes. They may have to pay off a mortgage. We want to know the bottom line. My recommendation is, even if you don't know all their history, have a draft one ready for your meeting that you can edit on the fly, or at least have a conversation to prepare an accurate one. Have a draft one ready, and send another one after the listing goes on the market, and send at the list price, or send another one after offers come in so they know the net for each offer they get, and send a final one after they get into contract. So they know every step along the way how much cash they're going to get at the end of your best estimate, right?
So I will have enough information even before I meet them.
Well, maybe. One would hope you have some sense of how much the mortgage was. That's usually the biggest variable. But, if you already know, because a lot of it depends on the list price you're proposing versus the list price they want to use. and what it should sell for. I tend to, if I don't know that, and I don't before I go into the meeting, I tend to put in a list price a little bit on the lower side and then adjust in the meeting if it has to be, and adjust for the actual mortgage debt. Sometimes they will tell you in the questionnaire they must get X dollars, right? And then you use that. Or they say we owe X amount on our mortgage still. That's a good question to put in your pre-questionnaire. How much do you owe on this property in mortgage debt? And use that number, even if it hasn't been verified. Then you get to the meeting, they told you 400, but you get the actual statement and it's 450. That's a lot of difference. You can say, listen, this is a draft. Okay, we're going to edit it. And what I do is I have a printed copy and I cross it out in front of them and put in 50, and then I just scratch out the number at the bottom and say, I'm going to do this again for you. Or if they're tech savvy, I'll do it right in front of them with my phone, with my computer. Most sellers want to know the bottom line. There's a lot of ways to create it. The way I use, because I'm old fashioned, is I use Zip Forms. Now, Zip Forms has a special form for this that I'm going to show you in a minute. The problem with it is that it looks like this. It is not sexy and good looking. You can get perfectly good net sheets from your favorite title company. They provide a form. You can do it on a phone. You can do a net sheet on your phone with their app and have that printed, or show it to them on your phone, not recommended. Show it to them on a laptop. That is maybe it looks a lot better than this.
Such a great.
It is an amazing resource.
And you'll almost feel guilty that they're doing all this stuff.
They want to earn your business when you're working when you're working the listing, because listing agents have power to say, Mr. Buyer, we'd like you to use X title company. And, and oftentimes the buyer's agent will say fine, and the buyer will say fine. So absolutely, it's all about future business. So in this very complicated thing, all I want to point out here, because I can't make it bigger, is at the bottom right corner, we're listing the property for 1.3 million. This seller is only walking away with 205,000 in this example. Okay, that's just an example. I loaded it up. It has 2 mortgages. It has a huge city transfer tax fee. You're earning 3%. You're giving 2.5% to the buyer's agent. So I loaded it up. But you'll do it accurately for what you know and what you estimate. And talk to your mentor. Your mentor can give you advice on this too.
And if you choose to go to the market with a below a little bit teaser price, you put over there the teaser price or what you actually expect to get.
I would use the teaser price because I want to be conservative, right? I basically want to dampen expectations, not raise them. Okay. I mean, certainly about my service, I want to raise them, but in terms of what they should expect, because the market's changing all the time. And you might have a teaser price in a market where you should get multiple offers, and then the market changes as we've seen it change, and you're not getting multiple offers. And now you're lucky to get the asking price, as Nathan is seeing with his listing. Nathan's left the room, but as he's seeing with his listing. Okay, so we still have more prep to do. We're not ready for the appointment, guys. We are going to drive by the property before the meeting. We're going to observe the neighborhood and the properties, the neighborhood condition of neighboring houses. We're going to look at this house and get our sense of the curb appeal of it before the meeting, not 5 minutes before. Go by at least an hour, and ideally a day or 2 before. Okay, just drive around and, get a sense of the activity. Is this a big urban, busy, sprawling area with lots of foot traffic and lots of, congestion? Is it feel safe to you? Just general sense of what this neighborhood is like. Is the house got any curb appeal? What could you do? Start imagining what you could do to make the house prettier on the outside, right? That same day, go into as many of the properties that are on the market in the neighborhood as you possibly can. Via via connections with MLS. Go to the MLS, see what the showing instructions are, try to get into as many of them as you can. Even if they are not the same comps. I mean, ideally you want to get into the local competitive comps, but if they're not competitive comps because they're too small, they're fixers, yours isn't going to be a fixer, whatever, go look at them. Because I promise you, your seller sees the sign in the yard and the seller may not have been into them. They may be showing by appointment. They may have not had an open house yet. Maybe they've gone pending, but you can still get in. Always try to get into pending listings. Okay. If it says pending, show for backups. Go look at it. especially if it's vacant, right? Go see these houses and make notes because you're not going to remember. You're going to get confused. Make lots of notes so that when you're meeting in front of the client, you can say, I saw that house. No, it didn't have a third bathroom. It only had two. Happens all the time. Right.
To go into open houses and pending houses when you're having an open house, or are you?
Okay, we're talking about before going on a listing
Okay,
appointment.
yeah, I'm saying when you have a potential listing ahead of you, it's always good to like you said, to drive by the area and to go into those open houses and pending previously before you even.
Oh, absolutely. If you can do it. We're busy,
Right.
right? I mean, sometimes time hurts us, but it's a pretty good idea because let's suppose they were good friends with the people who are selling the house, but they haven't been in the house for 5 years and they don't know that the house has been completely remodeled for sale. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Gather information about nearby pending listings. So let's suppose something's pending and you can't get into it. Phone the listing agent for each one. We're talking about not a lot of properties here, 2, maybe 3, right? Call the neighbors, call the listing agent and say, listen, I'm about to bring on the property, 2 doors down, 2 doors down in the condo building, or I'm about to bring on a property on the next street. Can you share with me, did your seller get the price that they wanted on the listing, right? Are you good contract around the sale price? How many offers did you get? What was it like to market? Do you get good open house traffic? Then call the buyer's agent and ask them, how long did they look for a property? Were they just looking in this neighborhood? Questions like that. That's going to make you look super smart, even if you haven't been in that neighborhood ever before in your life. It's going to make you look like you're an expert, which is what we want to do here, right? And then perhaps the most important thing, guys, this is why you should have a script practice partner. Practice your conversations before meeting with a colleague or a friend or a mentor or a script practice partner. Practice before you go. Here are 4 things you want to practice before you go. And by the way, we have sample dialogues on the portal. Seller wants to list it too high. They're coming right out of the gate, way above the comps. You need to show them the comps and explain to them why that's not realistic. Number 2, seller wants you to reduce your commission. Redfin was here yesterday or an hour before you. They're going to do it for 1%. You can't do it for 1%. Not just because the broker doesn't want you to, but because you're a professional and you're going to get them way better price and faster than any Redfin agent will. What happens with buyers? Wow, I thought the commission was 5%. What are you talking about? 3%. What happens? Well, they may not really get that connection. Talk about buyer agency. And what's your marketing plan? Having had a conversation, having had a chance to look at their pre-listing questionnaire and have some conversations with them, could you explain your marketing plan to a colleague? Could you do a script practice where you went over your marketing plan? Quite apart from the formality of the presentation, which you can practice too. Role play. And I'm available for role plays too. The problem is that my schedule is probably tighter than your script practice partners is. So it's hard for me sometimes to be available if you give me like a day. I had somebody schedule an appointment with me at noon yesterday for 4:30 because the time was open on my calendar and I was in the car and I wasn't on Zoom. It was unfortunate, right? So, it's hard for anyway. All right, more. Last things before you go to the appointment. You want to confirm it. I got to tell you guys, I've had it happen twice in my career where I showed up and no one was there. After trying to confirm the appointment once, I did try, nobody answered. So I thought it was better to show up on the vague possibility that they were going to be there. But I've also had times where I phoned and said, no, we need to move it, right? Confirm your appointment the day before, okay? Organize your calendar and commute so you arrive 15 minutes early. Why? Why? Because I want you to have time to compose yourself, especially when you're new and you've not done this before and you're going to think, okay, have time to sit in the car. Maybe you've been stressed out. The traffic was a bear. Maybe you just came from a fight with the girlfriend or the boyfriend. I don't care. You need to get there early so you can, first of all, it assures you're not going to be late, which is totally no good. Don't ever be late. But it also just gives you a chance to, if you do get there 15 minutes early, it gives you a chance to just sort of breathe, take it in, get yourself in the right mindset, how you're going to get this listing today and how you're going to have a great conversation and a great experience. Huh?
Get some coffee.
And have some coffee, have a cup. especially if you're kind of a quiet person, coffee can sort of give you that stimulant. And always remember, because I've been burned on this one, check the MLS the morning of your appointment again, because a new listing may have come up since you did your CMA. By the way, you can automate this. As soon as you get the listing appointment, you can automate a drip for yourself of properties in that area so you get an alert. But if you don't want to do a drip or automate it, make sure you check. Check. Because if something came on that morning, you'll probably know about it and the client probably doesn't. And now you're going to look even smarter, right? Yeah, your neighbor's house is just went on the market. Did you know that? Oh my God, no. Yeah, the sign will be up probably this afternoon or tomorrow. It's on the market for this amount of price. We're going to have to factor that in if we're going on the market in the next 2 weeks. All right, I think we're ready for being at the property. So this is not going to tell you every single step of your presentation, and it's not going to talk about the dynamics of how to interact with them. There's some bullets that I always do that I recommend you always do. View the property, either by yourself or with them. Check out everything inside that you can possibly access, and check out everything outside that you can access. And if you can't access something, that's a discussion point with your seller, because buyers are going to want to look at it. What are you looking for from your perspective as a potential listing agent for the property?
Unique aspects about the property that, first of all, you think will help it sell.
Things that will help it to sell. That's right.
Shows that you have sensitivity and intuition about things that are really cool about the property. Because okay, this
Cool things about the property.
Trust them. Understand what I'm selling.
Right, because they may have a lot of pride of ownership. And they may think that the way they decorate it, so that can go another way. What if you go into a part of the property and, oh my God, what they did to that room is atrocious, right? Let's not focus a lot of attention on that, but let's be aware that we have to delicately approach that if we're going to be fixing that room up so it will actually not be atrocious. Another thing you're going to do, you're going to get a very clear understanding of the seller's needs and priorities. Okay, this is super important. Probably more important you do this first after you go in, look at the ground, then sit down. This is the first thing you're talking about, asking questions. David Gunderman, one of our top producing team leads, he talks about this. His attitude is he goes on these presentations and all he wants to do is have a cup of coffee and talk about their life and what they want and they need. He's done presentations. It's super important. Let me just say one more thing, then I'll take your feedback. They may put something on the seller questionnaire that is contradictory. So I once asked my client to rank price, condition, and inconvenience as the three things what would they want? 1, 2, 3. They put all of them as number 1. So anyway, Nathan.
Do you need to do to?
Yeah, seller needs pretty broad.
They need to touch up the price.
Yeah. Why they need to sell, right? The question came up before, why they need to sell. If they haven't answered it clearly or not at all on your questionnaire or didn't fill out the questionnaire. Yeah.
To support that, a little while ago, with 35 or 40 years experience.
Mm-hmm.
What's the single biggest piece of advice you'll get? That you said 100%, the number one thing all you're trying to do, buyer or seller, is find out what their why is. If you understand their why, really understand it, then you can go forward. Absolutely.
Understand the buyer or seller's why, their motivation. And this is the thing with buyers, right? Ahmad, you have an appointment coming up with a potential. Well, you're the one who did the appointment. It's the lady who was sitting here that has an appointment next week. When you have an appointment with a buyer or a seller, that's what you really want to get at. And when we had the special presentation in the last hour by Sarah, where she was talking about she doesn't waste her time with people who aren't, motivated. That's because she wants to get it if they're really serious about buying or selling. Okay, you're going to share your marketing plan, modified on the fly for stuff you've learned in your meeting with them, what their needs are, right? So let's suppose you have a marketing plan based on them getting top dollar, but one look at the house and their needs and discussion of their financial situation, and they need to sell next week. Your marketing plan changes. Clarify the terms of sale. What do I mean by that? Price, commission, Contingencies that buyer might ask for, things that you're gonna go over with them in the contract in a little bit. Does the seller need a rent back? Does the seller need to keep any, does the seller understand about personal property? That the chandelier their grandmother gave them, they have to specifically exclude or take down before the sale, right? That sort of discussion. Privacy issues, insurance issues. All of this you don't have to remember. It's on the seller advisory, which is like the extra pages that go with the listing agreement, but you should read it in advance. So you're thinking about the terms of sale. Review the paperwork, have it physically out there, even if you're going to have them DocuSign it in real time at the end of the meeting or afterwards, have it right there, including the net sheet, ideally accurate net sheet. And then get the listing signed. Yes, under verified terms of sale. Mr. Seller, let's talk a little bit about your disclosure obligation. Mr. Seller, you should be disclosing everything you know about the property that a buyer would impact the value and desirability of the property, even if it might lower the value and desirability of the property. You have to disclose it. And you can talk to them about how we live in the most litigious state in the most litigious country. And if they don't, they could get sued. I sometimes play hardball if they're around this, because people have this notion, well, we don't need to tell them about the fire in the garage, that happened 2 years ago.
And I think one
Yeah.
way you can go about that, because it's important for you sort of that you understand this, is to explain them, not always, but what the AVID is all about.
Yes,
Because disclose. By the way, one of the things I have to do as an agent, I have to go through the property and just point out things that I see. Because we never want any surprises. It's not holding things back. It's making things as transparent as possible. For example, you can show them a couple of things. If you want to, so they can start thinking about, how that process is going to work, because they might feel later on like, well, that's not good for me. You're pointing out all these flaws.
right, exactly. We have a legal obligation too, to do an agent visual. You could do, if they sign right then, you can extend the meeting and say, listen, I'm here right now anyway. Let me do my walkthrough right now, especially if you're going to go on the market very quickly. But if you're going to be having subsequent visits for various things, then I don't normally do the AVID until later. Agent visual inspection disclosure, legal requirement of all agents. They go through and do a visual inspection.
If you see senior agents, you look at someone, they can be, like I just looked at one for this week I'm doing for this open house. Claudia's beautiful house, Julie Morgan house. There's 42 things on her AVID. 42.
Yeah.
On a really nice house.
Yeah. And the bigger the house, the more there is. Yeah. Yours was huge. You had a big house. All right. You're still at the property. As we've talked about lots, all sellers want the highest price, fastest sale, and the least inconvenience. But what they don't understand is that they do have one that's more important than the other. And there are impacts for your marketing plan based on what they say. I've had clients in all three categories. Okay. So you need to find this out. How will you help them? Here's the critical part. They tell you that all are important and they push back. They don't want to prioritize. Then you have to help them prioritize. You have to help explain to them that this comp here was a vacant, completely remodeled property. Look at these pictures. If you're living in the property, okay, and we're using your furniture that you've had since 1950, and the walls are painted green and yellow and purple, don't you think if you were a buyer that you wouldn't want to pay as much for this property as that? So you have to have that discussion. Yes.
A great way to handle that is to say, look, these are these three things. You got to pick two.
Yeah.
And whatever two they pick, it's going to impact the rate.
It'll impact your marketing plan and your pricing strategy. Absolutely. And how will you discuss the trade-offs, right? Because you may have to explain to them you're not going to, there are costs, financial costs associated with each one. So this is super important. Yes.
Do they do it or do you?
It depends. It completely depends. My sellers are doing their own painting, but they're very handy and they're very motivated. But you come to places that are vacant and you hire a company to do it and the seller pays for it and you just arrange to manage it. But you're not supposed to property manage, right? Don't promise them you're going to property manage a whole bunch of subcontractors, but you can process payments.
Stephen, what are some things pretty much every time you do for the sellers?
Photography for sure. I always pay. I also And everything we've been discussing so far is part of a normal process for me. But in terms of outbound expenses,
Why do you
primarily
put the
photography. I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. Why? Photography is not cheap. It's, you know, it could be over. I'm paying on my new listing almost $1,000, and I got an entry level photography package that doesn't include the fancy floor diagrams or the three-dimensional buttons to push to move you through the house on the computer internet. Um, the photography is everything when you're listing a property on the MLS, especially nowadays, even more so. 10, 15 years ago, you could just put in a picture of the outside of the house and it wouldn't hurt the sale too much. Now you won't get people. People won't come out. They won't look at it. You need pictures. But why? It's been standard practice that real estate agents pay for the marketing, and photography is considered marketing. Now, you could make an argument that you take 2% instead of, or 2.5%, because your Mr. Seller will do the photography and pay for all the marketing. So menu of services option is coming in the future. But I always pay for marketing, all the flyer distribution, all the print media, all the management of open house, everything around marketing, I pay for. The only thing I don't pay for is staging. And I put that into my net sheet, estimate X amount of dollars for staging, professional staging, where a third party company comes in. I pay for virtual staging, though. I don't charge for that.
Sales tax.
Yes. Yeah, that's a plus. That's part of their value proposition.
Part of your own business. plan?
Yes.
Understand.
I think it's each person's
Like it's-
business plan. That's pretty standard. Yeah. I would be curious if we were to do a poll of senior agents, if any of them don't pay for the photography, because it's been standard in the industry since I started. Great question, though. All right. Also at the property, as I've mentioned before, you're going to need to, your marketing plan that you carefully crafted before the meeting needs editing. I promise you almost 100% of the time, something is different. So, you're going to need to be thinking about how will you need to modify the plan based on what they say. Like, for example, I went into a home where the seller said, no, you can't do open houses. No, I have to be present for all showings. And no, I'm not going to open windows and drapes and blinds for when the people come in the house. And I'm not going to clear the clutter or move any of my tchotchkes from all the furniture that was everywhere. Wow. That certainly impacted my marketing plan. I mean, it was non-negotiable right from the very beginning. That created a whole different dynamic right from the beginning of what that discussion was going to be like. I didn't know that. It was a referral from someone in my sphere. And I went, her mother, and I went and met with her, and it was like, okay. This was a very determined, feisty lady. She was not having any of it. And so the question then becomes is, can I still sell the house? And what price can I sell it for, given this major detriment, right?
She said no open houses, no what?
No agent showing the property without her in it. That changed a little bit. She would agree to leave the property. She would agree to let agents that I had previously vetted go show the property when she was at work, but she wouldn't clean or tidy up or do anything. Yeah, well, it happens. All right. Terms of sale. Okay. You must review your CMA, obviously, with them. Help the seller set a good asking price. Review the net sheet based on the asking price that you're getting close to. You do not tell them ever list the property for X. Mr. Seller, list the property for 700. Never ever do that. Okay. It's their property. Give them ownership and give them a range. Mr. Seller, based on us looking at the comps, you should be listing between this and this. Make it a narrow range if you have to. Tell them an advantage of being at the low end of the range and the advantage of being at the higher end of range. Mr. Seller, what do you want to do? I want to list it at the high end of the range at 800, let's just say. Mr. Seller, that's great. How about we list it for $799.9? Because psychologically, the Walmart effect. You go into Walmart and those 9s and 8s show up. And I had a seller say to me, could we just make that 988 or 888? Because there are a lot of people of a certain ethnic group who are going to be buying in this neighborhood and they like the number 8. And I said, sure. So I'm not going to quibble with them over $100, right? But you give them agency, so to speak, small a. You give them power. And also, you don't want to be the one setting the price. It's like if you're going to have a conversation later about the value of this price, you want them to have the ownership of the price that got chosen, right? If you're going to be having the discussion Nathan's having coming up that he's tried to have, right? If they chose the price, you have a little bit more You know, especially if they're insisting on listing higher, and we'll get to that in a minute. Discuss the seller's disclosure applications. Ricardo asked about that. Discuss offer presentation as they come in or at the end. Discuss standard offer terms the seller may want to see. Rent backs, for example. Not standard, sorry, contingencies, right? What kind of contingencies should they expect to see? Are they okay with a buyer asking for a loan contingency? How they feel about appraisal contingency, stuff like that. Do they need a fast close? Or do they want a fast close? Or is it advantageous to them? It may not be. I've had sellers say to me, we don't care about that. You know, we need time to move out anyway. Discuss special offer terms the seller may need. Rent back. I need to have a place to move first after I get the money. So rent back is often the solution. Your commission. Okay, the first words out of your mouth about commission should be, all commissions are negotiable. I charge X. Here is why. And now you shouldn't have to say here is why. You've got to look at their faces and just see how they react. Depending on how they react, you may want to get into an explanation of why you're worth that money. But if you've done all the stuff I've just told you to do, they shouldn't be asking questions. They should say fine. Right? Because most people will say, wow, the bar is low, guys. If you're not a KW trained agent or one of the top training agencies, there are good brokerages out there, but that's a super minority. The vast majority of agents get their license and go and are not with a good training organization, so they don't know how to do this. And you're up against them most of the time. Now, let's say you're competing in the Berkeley Hills. Okay, that's a little different. But most of the time, you're competing against poorly trained agents who do not have this organization or training or a prep or know what to say, scripts and dialogues. So you're way ahead of them already. So they will pay you. Yes.
Do we have a lower dropout rate than?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you asked that. 75% of new licensees leave the business within 2 years. Here it's 25%.
Oh, that's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Oh, almost maybe two.
Yeah, in a tough market too. And discuss the buyer agency commission. Discuss why it is in their best interest to entertain offers where the buyer agent asks them to pay the commission. Because otherwise, if they don't have that on the table, there will be buyers who bypass the property completely. The agent phones, will the seller pay buyer co-op? And your answer should be, the seller is open to it, send us your offer. Okay, or something along those lines. Okay, the seller is open to it. Because if you don't, the buyer agent, if you say no, the buyer agent may be forced to not even show that property because the buyer won't understand, and maybe not a good agent on the other end of the phone who doesn't know how to explain that it's about the net, not about the gross. Anyway, talk to your sellers about that. Then you're going to review the paperwork with the listing agreement in detail, printed copy in front of you. Don't do it unless they're 18. Don't do it with your screen, your tiny little laptop. Or you could do it across the table with them on the screen on a Zoom kind of environment where they can see your screen. But no, better to do it physically. Sale price, length of agreement, broker commission to be paid, personal property exclusions, and the advisories. Make sure you talk to them about fair housing. We have a whole 2-page document about fair housing. They are not allowed to discriminate on all these various things, and even subtly. And that's why we don't take buyer love letters anymore. Okay, so it's sort of like implicit versus overt bias. It's out there, guys. I hate to say it. We haven't solved the problem of discrimination. Not just color, but disability and all kinds of other things. Talk to them about insurance. Talk to them about privacy. Talk to them about MLS waiver, keeping it off the MLS, understanding that the perfect buyer may come through while you're getting the property prepped.
Insurance is just a nightmare.
Yeah, they're paying $1,500 a year, and it's going to be that any buyer is going to have to pay $5,000. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, there's fair housing.
But even when it's getting to the point
where it's getting harder. Yeah, but
if you can say, these are the following insurance options, and you have that available at the point.
Yeah, put it in your disclosure package, I say. All right, here are some tips, and we're getting near the end. That's just good because we're almost out of time. Some basic tips. Be understanding, patient, and discuss all objections as if you were a batter in the baseball thing and you're trying to hit home runs. Treat it like that, like a game. Don't treat it like, oh, these people are ridiculous. They're asking all these hard questions. Right? I'm so glad you asked that. What a great question. And explore, and if you think it's a crazy question, don't say a stupid question. What you say is, or tell me more about that. That's your next line. And consider your response in advance. This again comes to script practice. They're going to say to you things like, we're not ready to sign. We need to read all the paperwork that you just went over line by line with them. Or, we have an interview this afternoon with another agent. Or we have an interview tomorrow morning with another agent from another company. There's all kinds of, we don't have time to go through them, but we have scripts about what to say if that happens. It'll happen from time to time, right? What does that mean? It means you haven't sold them on how awesome you are, right? Avoid listing the property above what you know it will likely sell for. So here's the thing. Sometimes you're going to have people who are completely unreasonable, and you've shown them the comps, and the comps say it's $1 million house, and they want to list at 1.2, and they're not having anything of all this great. They're not rational. Okay, they're not having it. They're not prepared to do anything else. Question is, should you take that listing? Well, I think that too. So somebody in the room is shaking their head. No, you shouldn't take the listing. So I always used to say, don't take that listing. You're wasting your time and money. You're going to spend this money on photography and marketing, print media, whatever you're going to spend money on, time away from getting clients who are serious and motivated. There was an instructor a productivity coach I knew who used to be with one of our other offices who said, well, for new agents, there's the learning curve value of taking the listing anyway, and the exposure of your name on the yard sign and in your media and to your sphere that shows that you're a professional doing the work. And he said he felt that might be worth it for a certain period of time. So here's my new modified advice. If your seller insists on an irrational price, make it a short-term listing. Tell them, listen, I'm only doing this for 30 days. You can say, this is a 30-day listing now. If we get your seller, we'll extend it and we'll get into closing. But if we don't, and you're not prepared to lower the price, then I'm out of here. Or you say, Mr. Seller, I totally understand what you need to make enough money so you walk away with a few kopecks. But if we don't sell it, then, are you prepared to sign an addendum at the bottom saying you'll lower the price 10% after 30 days or 40 days or whatever? So you can put it into the listing agreement. So I just want you to think about it and be thought about it before you go on the meeting. Yes.
Stephen Bloom is having me do, going on brokers, is so he's able over his 20-year plus career, he's gotten to the point where he's within 5% almost all the time of what he thinks the house was going to sell for and what it actually sells for.
Yeah, start tracking that, guys.
And so that's a challenge. He wants to get really good at it. So if I go with him for an appointment, one of the answers to that is say, listen, obviously we can't predict the future, but I can just tell you historically, we're really good at this. So the number we're going to show you here is really the number with this range. It's really likely to be in that.
Yeah.
If you insist on something, that's your priority to do that. But just our experience says the following.
Right. And remember, historical data is no guarantee of future results. So the market's changing and it continues to change. We're in a shifting market right now. The last thing I want to say is remember, you are not a discount broker. If you want to take a listing for less than 2.5%, go talk to your mentor, talk to me, talk to the brokerage, get kind of like an okay on it. Don't agree to it right up front. Okay. There are special circumstances, right? Let's suppose the person says to you, I've got 3 other homes to sell. If you do this one well, I'll give you 3 listings. Or they say, I'm going to buy with you.
You get that in writing.
Well, you have to sign a listing agreement, but not necessarily. The point I'm trying to say is that if you feel you can make a case for discounting your fee because of a future business opportunity, take it to your mentor, take it to the brokerage that may let you go below 2.5. Okay, same on the buy side, by the way. But normally 2.5 is the bottom line. And your argument should, when they talk about commission, should not be the race to the bottom. It should be your value. What you are doing. You guys are worth at least 2.5%. I charge 3, and I get it. almost all the time. You guys are worth every penny. You're the best trained agents, even though you haven't sold a lot of homes. You're the best trained agents out there. Okay, you're learning from top agents like Sarah this morning, who came and spoke to our group. You're learning best practices. You are worth every penny of that 2.5% to 3%. Sometimes people charge more. Some people who do other services around property management, which they're not supposed to do, or not property management, project management. Some people who offer staging services charge 3.5% to sellers, right? If there's going to be a lot of extra work, you can charge. You're an independent contractor. Charging more is no problem if you can get it. All right, but be clear on your value proposition. All right, after the appointment, I got to go fast because we're running out of time. Send the seller a thank you note. A handwritten note is ideal. Drop it in their mailbox if you don't know, if you don't want to mail it. Send them a note card. Show appreciation. They let you in their home. They let you see their home. They shared with you intimate and personal details about their life that they had to for the purpose of this process. Show some gratitude. Order the title report if you haven't done so yet. Connect. Now you've gotten the listing, right? So order the title report. Connect with the transaction coordinator who helps you with the dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and prepare the seller disclosure package for them to start signing all that disclosure paperwork. Send them a marketing calendar outlining all the activities that are going to happen before they go on the market and when they're on the market, so they can see it visually. Very helpful. And then you should begin work on that marketing material as soon as possible. Organizing photography, organizing what you're going to put in the MLS, all those things we talked about. What is the flyer going to look like? We have help for you. Your mentor will help you with some of the transactional stuff, but we have a whole marketing department which will help you with preparation of stuff, as Nathan was pointing out. All right. Here is some quick tools that are going to cover a lot of these supports. Number one, the MLS Cloud CMA and RPR are all tools to help you research comps and property information. Zip forms, which you all have as a result of your membership in the Board of Realtors, helps you to prepare the seller contract and some of the legally required disclosure documents that the seller needs to sign. The KWA portal, it will have the seller guides, resources for marketing and flyer preparation, and it will also have links to all the legal disclosures that the brokerage wants your seller to sign. Now, you can print them yourself so you know what they say and review them, but your transaction coordinator will actually put them in the package that your seller's going to sign. But you need to read them before the meeting, right? Or before the meeting where they get signed. I actually don't have my seller sign the disclosure package during the meeting when I'm getting this is after. You're going to meet with them again to go over disclosures. You don't normally do it in the initial meeting. That would be a long conversation. Advertising guidelines. And then finally, HomeLight. HomeLight, or Disclosures.io, as some people still call it, is the web portal we use to organize all the documents, where buyers can go in and see a list of all the documents that are part of the disclosure package. The seller's agent prepares that using this tool. All right, we're out of time. If you want a copy, thank you guys. If you want to, and all the insight, if you want a copy of this presentation or a copy of the seller questionnaire, fill out this short questionnaire, and my assistant will send it to you. And I think that's it. So has everyone got this? Let me know, because I'm going to then end the Zoom for the lovely people on YouTube who are watching this. You got it? One more. You got it? Everyone good? Okay.
Did you get it?
Where are we here? One sec. Let me just stop sharing.